Peace and love, family, and welcome back for another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and we're here every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time to bring you encouragement, to bring hope, to share various insights that we believe will help to strengthen you and empower you on your life's journey, and to offer actual healing, which we do through a methodology referred to as Transcending the Matrix, which is a holistic based approach to healing that really addresses all aspects of a person's beingness: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, every aspect of a person's beingness. And so we welcome you here to this space, and from a genuine heart space, from my heart to yours, I'm sending love with the prayer and the intention that it reaches you where it needs to reach you. Okay. And so what we're dealing with today is such an important and significant matter. It's a matter that, quite frankly, most people don't want to have to deal with. It's a matter that is really what stands between us and our sense of well-being in virtually, if not every aspect of our lives. And that is this whole matter of forgiveness. Jennifer Bliss, good to see you in the space, sis. This matter of forgiveness. And so let's talk first of all about some of the misnomers that we have about forgiveness, because generally speaking, a lot of times we have reservations or resistance to the whole issue of forgiveness. We don't want to forgive people. We have situations where we have been hurt, or we feel like there's been some violation of some sort. We feel like the person who we hold responsible for our pain should have to suffer. We want them to suffer in their life, possibly in the same way that they caused us to suffer, or that we think that they caused us to suffer. Sometimes we even want them to rot in hell, right? This is stuff that goes on in our minds, and in the meantime, while we're holding on to that, like the options are forgiveness or unforgiveness, right? And a lot of times, what we subconsciously, sometimes even consciously, choose is the unforgiveness, to hold on to the unforgiveness. Now, the thing about unforgiveness is unforgiveness doesn't travel alone. It brings a whole posse with it. And the posse that it brings with it is resentment, animosity, bitterness. Okay. That the deepest root of cancer is resentment, right? It can impact your prosperity. Unforgiveness, my brother Spencer Murray, I love the way that I heard him once put it, that unforgiveness is like eating poison and expecting somebody else to die, right? Jennifer Bliss says, I find forgiveness has layers, and I think I've forgiven, and then things show up to let me know that I've not truly forgiven, that there's still some work to be done. And yes, that's very true. So forgiveness isn't a statement of words. It isn't somebody did something that we didn't like, and then we say to them, I forgive you. They want us to forgive them. Maybe they even ask us for forgiveness, and we say, I forgive you. And maybe in our heart, that's what we're wanting to be the case. I saw a video. There's a guy who does a podcast called Dear Future Wifey. And on this Dear Future Wifey, there was a guy who was, and I think I've mentioned this during the Sunday Hope and Healing session before. I hadn't planned specifically on telling this story, but it's coming up right now to share this story. And in this particular situation, it was a guy who was a deacon at his church. And he was, in this room with the pastor, and I guess some other deacons or some other people who were definitely supportive of the pastor, and there to have the pastor's back and whatnot. And the pastor told these other men to grab him, meaning the guy who's sharing the story. And they grabbed this guy and held him down while the pastor sodomized this man in the church. Okay. Um, and as he's telling this story, and the topic of forgiveness came up, and this guy said that he forgave his pastor right after it happened. Absolutely not. He didn't. He would be completely capable of having forgiven him without actually really truly processing the pain of what happened in the first place. So it wasn't that this in his heart he wanted to forgive. He didn't want to hold on to animosity and bitterness. He knew enough to not want to hold on to that negative energy. But the reality is that within him, he was just in a state of avoidance and denial about what it was that was really going on deep down inside of him. And the reality is that there was an experience of betrayal. There was a violation. There was, for a heterosexual male, that happening would certainly feel like a an experience of his manhood being called to question, because the nature of a man is to want to protect, is to serve as a protector, and he wasn't even able to protect himself in this situation, to keep something that he didn't want to happen to him from happening to him. And so the way that he felt about the pastor, the way that he felt about himself, the way that he felt about the other men who were in the room, who held him down, who contributed to this thing that was perpetrated, and even the way that he felt about God, there were some things that were going on there. So it would be nice to, from an airy, flowery place, to be able to say, "Oh, all is rainbows and roses, no problem here." But that wasn't the reality of his lived experience. It was what he was wanting to tell himself, because he was not wanting to deal with the pain of what actually happened. And so forgiveness hadn't actually happened yet. Jennifer Bliss, as you mentioned, there are times that you think that you have forgiven, but then things will unfold that give you greater clarity on the reality that there's still some stuff that needs to be done. There's still some work that needs to be done as far as the forgiveness is concerned. And the way that you really know that you have truly forgiven somebody is when, I was just sharing this in a conversation with my sweetheart, the way that you know that the forgiveness is completed, is actualized, is when that thing no longer is attached to the button, when there's no charge to that button anymore. So if somebody presses that button, you don't have the same internal reaction to it that you once did. Okay. All right. And so let's talk about, because as I mentioned before, a lot of times we have resistance to forgiveness, and the goal, the point, is to actually do healing around this today. So we're going to actually do some healing to empower us to be able to master the art of forgiveness. And one of the reasons I even do this work in the first place is because I've been on this journey for a long time. It hasn't always been easy, but there have been some things that I've been able to have some success with along the way. And I believe I have a responsibility of sharing with you the things that have been useful for me in the event that you might want to utilize them in your life, for them to also be successful for you. And gosh, this was some 20 years ago. I remember my aunt saying to me, and I only thought about this recently. She mentioned to me that I've mastered forgiveness. She felt like I've mastered forgiveness for whatever reason. And I don't know if I would necessarily completely agree with that, because it doesn't always come immediately. Sometimes it's a process. But I do think that I have definitely made a lot of progress in this area. And some things I'll share with you I'll share some information and then we'll get into the healing. Okay. So there are a few different reasons that we as people on a surface level have resistance to healing. Then I'm going to get to the hidden reason that we have challenge with forgiveness. Okay. So again, more on some of the surface level, some of the challenges or some of the resistance that we have to forgiveness is part of it is thinking that if we forgive them, it means that what they did was okay. It's like we're saying that this wasn't a problem when we really do truly feel like it really was a problem. This thing that they did or this thing that they refrained from doing, things never should have unfolded that way. Okay. And so we think that if we forgive them, we're giving them a pass, that we're giving them an okay to possibly even do it again. And because in our at the core of our being, we know that we're not sitting right with it. We don't really want to say or communicate in any way, convey in any way that what they did was all right. When we know internally or we feel internally that it wasn't. Another reason that we sometimes that's and this is the surface level stuff. Another reason that we sometimes have a hard time with forgiveness is because we're not getting from them what we wanted to get from them. You know, maybe there was no apology, maybe there was no genuine repentance or genuine effort to try to make things right. To maybe there was nothing in them that endeavored to really truly repair the damage that was caused. Maybe they even continue to do the thing that they did before. Maybe they lied to you. Maybe they cheated on you. And maybe they haven't given you any indication that there will be any changes in their future behavior. And so this can make it difficult to forgive. We're still at the surface level, by the way, of this resistance to forgiveness. All right. Another reason that's sometimes hard for us to forgive, or why we sometimes have resistance to forgiving, is because we want to be right. We want to be right, and the other side of us wanting to be right is we want them to be wrong. Sometimes the other person looking bad in our eyes is part of our vindication, part of what we see as kind of leveling out the score. And so we might have some issue with forgiveness for that reason, because we're wanting somebody to look at us in a favorable light, look at us in a compassionate light. And we might want, that we might want that pass for the mistakes that we might then end up making, because we've been victimized. And as long as we're holding on to that victimization, we might be able to get some benefit of people feeling sympathetic towards us, rather than the person seeing this other person who we feel like caused us pain, seeing them in some kind of limelight, getting positive attention. And we may want the positive attention for ourselves, and we may want negative attention for them. Okay. These are all things that are very much at the surface level, though, of why we have resistance to forgiveness. So let's get into the deeper reason that we have resistance regarding forgiveness. And let me say this, that true forgiveness is in the realm of the miraculous. There have been some things that have happened to you. There have been some things that have happened to me that weren't things that we would have ever wanted to have happened in our lives. There have been some things that have happened that have been heinous crimes perpetrated against people. And those things aren't easy to deal with. Those things aren't easy to deal with. However, if you're able to get to a point of true forgiveness, then you're operating in the realm of the miraculous. Let me get to that a little bit more. I mentioned that we do healing through the methodology of transcending the matrix, right? And essentially the last thing that we do, not the first thing, but essentially the last thing that we do in doing a transcending the matrix healing session is get into forgiveness, to forgive unconditionally, right? That's part of the actual healing. To forgive. We don't start with that because that's too big of a hill for people to climb if they haven't gotten warmed up yet. But it is how we close things out. Cass, good to have you in the space again today. Okay. All right. Cass says, forgiving others is and has been easy for me. Forgiving myself has been more challenging to forget. Okay. Yeah, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm just going to go ahead and call it out. And if you feel resistance to it, feel free to voice your dissent in the comments, because I'm more than happy to address it. The thing about, you know what, I mentioned my brother Spencer Murray earlier. There's something else I heard him say once about forgiveness. And I don't remember where he saw this, but that forgiveness is releasing the hope that the past could have been different. All right. Forgiveness is releasing the hope that the past could have been different. If you can really get to a point of real, true, deep forgiveness, you come to a point where you realize that the only person that you ever needed to forgive in the first place was you. Cass says that forgiving others has always been something that's not been too difficult for her, but the challenge has been forgiving herself, right? The only person that we ever actually need to forgive is ourselves. Now, on some level, we need to forgive ourselves, we need to forgive the other person, and we need to forgive God, because we're holding all of those parties responsible for our pain. And so because we're holding all those parties responsible for our pain, we're needing to extend forgiveness to all of those parties. Now, forgiveness also isn't what we think it is. Forgiveness isn't just saying, this is okay, I'm healed of this now. I'm no longer going to keep you on the hook as being responsible for my pain that I'm going to wallow in and make you some bad, evil person because you were the so-called cause of my pain. What is forgiveness really? Forgiveness is actually just the replacing of divine truth for a worldly lie. Okay. Let me get into that a little bit. I'm going to make a statement. I'll build upon it, momentarily, but I'm going to make this statement initially. All the problems that we have in our lives aren't what we think that they are on the surface. The problems that we have with our health, and I'm telling you this as somebody who's not only been doing healing work for a long time, but who's actually been teaching other people how to do healing work for a couple of decades now. And I'm not saying this to puff myself up. I am saying this because I've begun to see patterns over time, right? And almost nothing is as it seems on the surface. Okay. I've seen people healed of issues in their body that were related to experiences of a non-physical nature that they had with other people. I've seen situations where people actually had dis-ease in their body or actually had some kind of injury due to some physical trauma that took place that was still related to some unresolved issue with some other human being or some other human beings. And as soon as that issue was resolved, their back went into proper alignment. Their sprained body part was repaired and they no longer had the discomfort and could walk straight. You know, they had other things open up in different areas of their life, right? And I'm telling you, we live in a world where nothing is as it seems, except for real, genuine, true, authentic love. But we frequently don't see that because we're wanting to substitute it for a lower vibration knockoff version of it. The real essence of love. The love that God has for you. There's no way for your mind to understand it. It's difficult for us as humans to really be able to grasp that in the eyes of God, we are perfect and pure. My teacher, Dr. Cam Ewan, I heard him one time say that unconditional love is really unconditional acceptance. And I want to tell you, beloved, no matter where you are in your life today, no matter what mistakes you might have made along your life journey, there's nothing that you've ever done that has diminished God's love for you. There may have been a lot of things that you've done that have kind of lined up with your belief that you're not worthy of love. It can't actually make God's love for you go anywhere. It can make you less receptive to the love that's there out of one's own feeling of a lack of worthiness of it. All right. And so when somebody so-called does you wrong, the real reason that we need to forgive is as an expression of self-love, is as an expression of self-love. And what does it mean to forgive anyway? What does it actually mean to forgive? To forgive means that for the illusion that you were presented, you are giving in its replacement a higher awareness and a higher truth. Okay. For the illusion that you are presented, for the falseness that you are presented, you are giving yourself the opportunity to see something more accurately. And the only reason that we need to forgive in the first place is because we saw something inaccurately somewhere along the way. And what is it that we see that's inaccurate? What it is that we see is inaccurate is that we are flawed, that there's something wrong with us, that we somehow aren't good enough. that we deserve some sort of punishment, and if we don't get it externally, we'll somehow punish ourselves. And it's that kind of thing that a person is experiencing within themselves that actually leads them to behave towards you in the way that ends up resulting in your pain, right? The flip side of that is it's also why you do the things that you do that result in other people's pain. But the reason that you're not forgiving someone else isn't because of their error. It's because of your error. And your error, I'm not saying that your error makes you bad or unworthy. I'm just saying that your error makes you have the opportunity to have space to get it right. Right? Okay. All right. And so, what is it that I'm really getting at? You are whole, perfect, and complete, just the way that you are. That's how God sees you. And yes, you've made mistakes. Yes, you've gotten some things wrong. Yes, you've done some things that you knew better than to do in the first place. But the truth of you is that you are loved just as you are, exactly as you are. There's nothing that you can do so good to make you worthy of that love, to make you be able to earn that love. And there's nothing that you can do so bad to make that love go away. Now, there might be some people that might not love you anymore. There may be some things about your nature or your behavior that might inspire people to love you, right? But what I'm talking about is something much deeper than that. What I'm talking about is something much, much deeper than that. Okay. The key for your healing is forgiveness. Because you are at your core, you're made of the same stuff that God is made of. So at your core, you are pure love and divine light, manifesting in human form. Okay. And you might have accumulated some gook along the way that makes it a little bit difficult for that to shine through. That's part of the human condition. But here's how you know that you're pure love and divine light. You know that you're pure love and divine light when pure love and divine light becomes all that you see. You know that you are pure love and divine light when pure love and divine light becomes all that you see. Let me put that another way. You know that you're innocent. Sometimes we try to play innocent when we're doing dirty. You know that you're innocent when innocence becomes all that you see in yourself and others. And the reason, Cass, that it's difficult for you to forgive you is because deep down inside that you know that some of the things that you've experienced were not worthy of you. And on some level, deep down inside, you know that you can only experience what is a manifestation of your consciousness. That can be a hard pill to swallow. I get that. But when we really come to a point of recognizing just how powerful you are, I said it. We're made in the image and likeness of God. If you look in the biblical record, it states that everything that God made all these things, and after everything that God made, God said it is good. And then God made you in God's own image after God's own likeness and said, this is very good. What am I talking about? What is it that I'm getting at? You are a creator. You are a creator, and everything in the world that you experience is a function of your creation, not anybody else's creation. What you experience in your world is not a corrupt politician's creation. What you experience in your world is not the creation of the person down the street who you don't get along with. The things that you experience in your world are not the creation of somebody on your job that you don't get along with. The things that you experience in your world are not the creation of people who you feel ignorantly voted for somebody that didn't have their own best interest at heart when they cast their ballot. Everything that you experience in your life is a function of your creation. And with that said, because there's a part of you, if even a small part of you is considering this as a possibility, there's a part of you that's thinking, well, why in the hell would I have created that? Right? If I can just be really real with you, pardon the language. If you're experiencing these things that you clearly don't like, what in the heck must be wrong? Let me make it personal, the way that we're thinking it within our own selves. If I'm creating all of this crap that I don't like, problems in relationships, problems with finances, problems on my job, problems with my health, problems in the world that I see. If I'm creating all of these problems, then what must be wrong with me to be creating all of this crap? That's a way that you can look at it. However, if you're having that thought, that's pointing to the need for the forgiveness. That's why the forgiveness is important. Okay. And I'm not laughing because I'm laughing at you. I'm laughing because, like, when you really deal with this, like I deal with these sorts of things. And when you really deal with this, you realize how actually absurd it actually is. Like, I think about some of the things that I have manifested in my life. Even knowing what I know, times that I chose to be irresponsible, times that I didn't choose to take responsibility for the things that happened in my life because decisions that other people made. Yeah, it's easy to say that this person is the reason for the problem that I'm having. You can get a whole lot of people to agree with you that this person who did this to you is the reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. But that's just not really being, if I'm going to call a spade, it's just being a little bit spiritually irresponsible. Okay. And I'm not saying that as a judgment that makes you a bad person. But what's the flip side of being irresponsible? The flip side of being irresponsible is to be responsible, to be spiritually responsible. What is it to be spiritually responsible? What it is to be spiritually responsible is to be able to bring a spiritual response to whatever it is that you experience in life, wherever it is that comes into your life experience. To be able to bring, and I'm not talking about being so heavenly bound that you're no earthly good. I'm not talking about being so otherworldly that you're not doing any good in the actual world. I'm not talking about being all pie in the sky in a way that's utterly ineffectual in the earth realm. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about wanting us to be empowered, to be able to say, this is what I created in my world because I have been endowed with so much power beyond what I have allowed myself to really acknowledge. It doesn't make me bad that I've created these things in my life. It doesn't make me bad that I did the things that I did that had negative consequences in other people's lives. It just means that I was asleep. It just means that I wasn't quite operating at full capacity. Greetings, Terry. Good to see you in the space today. All right. And so what we have here is we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to give divine truth in the place where it has been absent, or in the place where we were missing the mark along the way. Okay. There's something in the biblical scriptures in the New Testament that says that perfect love casts out fear, because fear has to do with torment or punishment. Okay. And for those who are operating in that space, they just haven't been made perfect in love yet. Love has not perfected itself in their awareness yet. Okay. In other words, they don't fully quite yet get what the real unconditional love of God is really all about, because it's never about punishment. It's never about condemnation. It's never about wanting to make you or anybody else suffer. What it is about is reconciliation, bringing you back to God, bringing you back to your own truest and highest and most perfect and most pure self. Okay. And that perfect, pure you is still there. It hasn't actually gone anywhere, even if you're not seeing it, even if other people around you aren't seeing it. But I tell you what, the more you start seeing it in yourself, the more other people are going to see it too. Now, there'll be some people who will be triggered by it. Just going to keep it a buck with you. There'll be some people who may see your growth and have some challenges with you and then lash out at you. And then you won't maybe understand why they're responding with all this animosity towards you. And what it is that there's something that they're seeing in you that is triggering within them. Oh, this is what I should be doing as well, but I don't really want to do that right now. And so they may lash out at you. But here's another thing. As you continue to grow and mature spiritually, you start to recognize, oh, okay, that's not actually my issue. I can actually operate in a space where I'm loving myself enough to just draw love into my life, where I'm only engaging with those who are loving and appreciative towards me. Right? I have to tell you folks, I've not always been here. I'm not always here in every moment, even now. But I am speaking you to it from a place of 100% sobriety in my spiritual awareness in this moment. Okay. And saying that who it is that we really need to forgive is ourselves. And we need to forgive ourselves every time that we're upset with somebody else. It's not really the other person that we're upset with. It's really us that we're upset with. And why is it that we're having an issue with ourselves? Because we know ourselves to be expressions of pure love and divine light. And an expression of pure love and divine light doesn't want to see anybody else punished or in torment. And because we're operating from that place, we feel like we have fallen off the wagon, like we are falling short, like there's something wrong with us to want to see somebody else suffer. There's something wrong with us to see someone according to their mask, their illusion. You know the word personality. You know what the word personality, where the word personality comes from? The word personality, if you know it, put it in the comments. The word personality comes from, and not everybody's personality is necessarily going to resonate with yours, right? But what's the root of the word personality? The root of the word personality is persona. What is a persona? A persona is a mask. What does a mask do? A mask presents something other than what's actually real, other than what's actually really at the core. A mask, a persona, a mask hides the real you. Okay. And so we get caught up on the level of our own ego. We get caught up in other people's masks. And then we get angry at the mask, or we project anger towards the mask when the anger that we're really feeling is towards ourselves. And when we can get to a point where we're able to say within ourselves, I am love, I choose to move in love. And, you know, I've been in some situations that I can no longer blame the people for what I experienced with them. Because the truth of the matter is that I really knew better. And I was just operating from a different headspace than what was most healthy for me. Right. And maybe the same is true for you. Maybe you might deal with that on some level. And I've had to forgive myself for the choices that I made that ended up causing me what would have been otherwise completely unnecessary pain and unnecessary hardship, right? And maybe that's been part of your life experience as well. And I talked a whole lot longer than I planned on talking today. So let's go ahead and get into the actual healing here. Okay. Let's get into the healing. God, I know you to be a healer. I know that your perfect will for us is to dwell in a state of atonement. And the only reason there's need for atonement is because there's been some missing of the mark along the way. Yet I know that in your mind, atonement is another way of saying at one. And through the union that we share through the power of pure love, the God in me demonstrates you as a healer on the behalf of all those who are tapped in and tuned into this healing right now, whether they're catching it live or on a playback, for the purpose of neutralizing and eliminating the root cause of all illusions that keep us locked into the cycle of blaming and forgiving, or blaming and needing to forgive. From the root cause in the entire energy field, every strand of DNA in every cell of each one of our bodies, and transmuting that and replacing it with true at one-ment. Seeing the deeper truth of the oneness that we share and experience with you and with all others. And to get to that point in our awareness where we truly are operating from a deep place of real pure love for ourselves as well as everybody else, and are therefore able to be active participants in your miracle working power. Mm, mm, mm. Now bear witness to our wholeness on this date and this time and space called now. Thank you, God. Thank you so much for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right. Okay, so let's and Cass, if you can expound on when you say yes, that's been me. Can you expound on what you're talking about there? All right. So let's look at um, our deeply held subconscious belief system that we need to be punished. I want to transmute that deeply held subconscious belief system that we need to be punished. Let's actually get to the root of that. Okay. Misunderstandings based on things that have been written in scriptures. Purify that through the power of God's pure love. All right. Let's look at let's look at the blame that others vocalized towards us, how we were the blame. Understood, okay. All right, let's transmute that to the power of God's pure love. Bring clear awareness from a God's eye view into the reality of our thinking, our subconscious thinking, as well as our conscious thinking. All right. And also, let's actually scriptures say that we were made in the image and likeness of God. But what's happened is that humans have made God in the image and likeness of themselves. God made us in the image and likeness of divine perfection. And in our failure to recognize our divine perfection, we have, in our minds, created a version of God or a belief system about God, that God is flawed and angry and wants to punish us and send us to hell and all of these other things. Okay. All right. Now, let's look at the voices we listen to. Let's transmute that and purify that from listening to the wrong voices, listening to the voice of the accuser, which is literally what Satan or Ha-Satan means. It means the accuser. Okay. And purify that through the power of pure love and rather than listening to the voice of the accuser, the one who wants to accuse us and accuse everyone else. Rather than listening to that voice, listening to the voice of love, of pure love, of transcendent love. Listening to the voice that heals. All right. And let's actually strengthen us to where that becomes our default setting, to listen to the voice that actually heals. I like that. Thank you, God. To listen to the voice that heals, and listen to the voice that heals with clarity and divine alignment. Okay. All right. And so let's also look at, there's another saying in the scriptures that says essentially says the sins of one generation keep on being passed down generation to generation. Right. And that continues until the cycle is broken. All right. And so let's actually strengthen all of us. Let's strengthen all of us to actually be the member of the family where that cycle is broken. Not taking it as like some heavy weight or anything, but as a privilege that we're honored to be able to be the vessels of on the behalf of our family lineage. Strengthen us for that. Okay. All right. Now let's look at clarifying our spiritual vision. Okay. So we can only see what actually aligns with our consciousness. We can only see what aligns with our consciousness. And so let's clarify our vision and our consciousness so that in every moment we're looking for the love of God to reveal itself. Ooh. Ooh, mm, I'm feeling something on that one. Oh my gosh. All right. All right. Looking for the love of God to reveal itself in all of our decisions. Mm. Looking for the love of God to reveal itself in how we are perceiving others, or through how we are perceiving others. Mm. Thank you, God. All right. Let's look at uh, let's look at taking the emotional charge out of our need to be right and our attachment to our own ego, that that part of us that wants to edge God out, that makes us want to be right. A lot of times I used to want to be an attorney. In fact, at one point I was studying for the LSAT, the law school admissions test, um, with the intention of going to law school. And I'm so glad that, at any rate, at some point while I was studying for the LSAT, I got a very clear message from God, what felt to me like a very clear message from God, that that wasn't the plan. It was a little bit before I got clear on what the plan was, but it came very clear that that wasn't the plan. I'm so glad now, because that's not where I'd want to be. But in a lot of cases, unfortunately, with many in the legal profession, it isn't about justice prevailing. It's about one winning their case, whether that's a civil case or whether it's a criminal case. One winning their case, independent of what might actually be right, but just winning the case to be able to win the case in order to prove themselves right. And a lot of times we are building cases and we just want to win. Independent of what the truth is, we just want to win. Our ego wants to win. The part of us that is trying to edge God out wants to win at whatever cost. All right. And so let's look at deactivating that part within us. Now, the ego, I've mentioned it before, is the part of us that tries to edge God out. Another way of relating to the ego. Another way of relating to the ego is the sense of separate self. The sense of separate self is the exact opposite as at one or atonement. The goal is to return to at one with God. The goal is to return to at one with your true self. The goal is to return to at one with all of creation. And so this is why when Jesus said, why Moses said, and then Jesus quoted him, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's exactly what I was just mentioning. It's speaking to that same exact thing, right? All right. And so I want to strengthen us to be able to truly, truly fall in love with God. There's room for a lot of improvement there, and that's okay. Doesn't make you bad because there's room for improvement. I want to strengthen us there in terms of strengthen our propensity to fall in love with God, to fall in love with the source of the love that's so perfect and so pure, that it embraces you exactly as you are, even though you've made some mistakes and stumbled along the way. But that is ever endeavoring to heal your every wound, to bring compassion and grace for you on your journey, who understands why you do what you do with the knowing of what it is that you've been through. And what's for you even more than what you want for yourself. To be at peace and joy and utter fulfillment. So I want to strengthen us to all be able to fall in love with it. And to allow yourself to be loved in that way. Mm. I used to have a lot of relationship challenges, being places that weren't healthy for me. Um, until I realized that the real forgiveness wasn't forgiving a certain personality type and then continuing to be with that particular type of personality type. But the real forgiveness was forgiving me for feeling the need to put myself through what I put myself. And then it was okay to allow myself to have a more desirable experience. This is true for you too, beloved, in whatever area of your life. Okay? It is completely okay for you to have a more desirable experience. And one that isn't based on surface level stuff, but one that's genuinely more fulfilling for your beingness, for the totality of your beingness. I want you to be able to glow. People say a lot of nice, very kind things about me. And I can't take credit for those things. I am deeply, deeply, deeply grateful that I've been blessed to be available for healing. That I've been blessed to participate in the healing work that makes a difference in other people's lives, but simultaneously is making it, I feel like, an even bigger difference in my own life. I want to strengthen us all to be able to make ourselves available, to make ourselves available and receptive to the good that wants to flow in us and the good that wants to flow through us. It wants to flow in us, to us, and through us. Okay. I want to strengthen all of us to be able to to be able to look through the eyes of innocence, knowing that we have a protective barrier around us that we don't have to monitor because God's got us covered. Mm. Oh, how freeing that is. You know, I know, I know that I know that I know that anybody who endeavors to do wrong towards me is not going to be good for them to do that. I don't have to do anything to get even with anybody. And that has been shown to me very clearly. Folk who do things towards me or respond towards me or even have intentions towards me that are something other than loving, they end up having something other than loving experiences that make their way to them. And the reverse is true. Folk who do right by me, good things happen for them. Um, and I don't even take any pleasure in seeing, but there have been occasions where I've seen folks suffer who've not responded so lovingly towards me, and I take no joy in it. I don't have to do wrong towards anybody. I don't have to wait for something bad to happen for anybody, and I don't have to celebrate when something bad happens to somebody, because I know that I'm covered. May we all keep our heart diligently, guard our hearts, protect our hearts, keep it pure, because it is a function of what's going on in our heart that determines all of the things that unfold in our lives. And my prayer for all of us is that there is only place in our hearts for love, for peace, and for light. Only the good stuff. The scientific law that two things cannot occupy the same place at the same time. Let our hearts be so filled with love, so filled with light, so filled with the joy, so filled with peace. That we get to be a beacon of light in the world. And that our light so shine that other folks will see that light within us and be drawn not just to us, but to the presence of God at work in us and through us, and feel inspired to tap into that within themselves. It is a function of who it is that we be and how it is that we show up in the world, that they feel inspired to get a little for themselves. And so, God, on this day, I thank you so much for the healing that's taken place. Thank you for the wonderful gift of us experiencing true atonement, true at-one-ment. For us really to know what it is to actually be saved from all of the chaos and the confusion that seeks to distract us from the beauty that is hiding underneath the masks of this world. And for gracing us to be able to move in joy and abundant gratitude as bearers of that pure love and divine light that is our essence and our birthright. For this and all other blessings, I give great thanks. Affirm it is done, it is done, it is done. All right, beloved. That you're asking about the bracelet, Terry. I just noticed your comment. I was pointing to it. It has a scripture on it, Proverbs 4:23, that says, guard your heart or protect your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the issues of life. And that's what I was speaking to. Cass and everybody else, you're very welcome. If you've experienced, Jennifer Bliss, you're quite welcome as well. If you've experienced something that you found to be of value in this, and you feel like there's somebody else in your life that you think it will be of value to, please pass it on and share it with them. The goal is I was praying about this earlier this morning, to be able to reach more people and more people more deeply in a life affirming way. Okay. Because it's better for all of us. The more of us that are experiencing a greater degree of wholeness, the better it is for all of us. When the folk who are around you are healed and they're operating from a healthy place, makes your life so much easier. So I'm really wanting to spread this so it can reach as many people as possible, so that healing can reach as many people as possible, so that only good stuff comes our way. And for much bigger reasons than that, actually. If you would share it with somebody that you feel like it would be a blessing to, and maybe share with them why it is that you're sharing it with them. We've got a Transcending the Matrix class coming up next weekend. Not next weekend, actually, this coming up weekend. The 27th through the 29th of June is going to be on Zoom. If you're interested in participating in that, reach out to me at Royce Fletcher Thomas, and either on Facebook or on Instagram, and let me know that you're interested. Do so soon, because I'm going to have to get a manual out to you, and it will need a couple days to travel in the mail. The class will start Friday, and I promise you it'll be a life-changing experience. Anyway, from my heart to yours, I'm sending a bunch of love in your direction. And as we continue to endeavor to enter into that sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, until we meet again, I bid you adieu with peace and love. Catch you next time.